Welcome to Let's Talk Passion and Purpose, the podcast where we explore the journeys of creators, leaders, and visionaries who've turned their passions into purpose. Join your host, Nicole Thomas, as we dive into inspiring stories, uncover strategies for success, and help you take the next step toward a life filled with meaning. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Passion and Purpose with Nicole Thomas. In this interview, I sit down with Bridgette Bramlage, a Chicago-based collage artist who turns vintage ads and magazines into bold feminist narratives. What started as a pandemic coping tool has grown into gallery shows, artist residencies, and a signature style rooted in chaos, color, and commentary. In this episode, Bridgette opens up about how a messy, intuitive process fuels her creativity, why validation helped her fully claim her identity as an artist, how her artist residency in France rewired her creative brain, and why she believes play, not perfection, is the key to getting started. A little more about Bridgette. Bridgette is a lifelong collector of vintage magazines, and the 2020 pandemic brought out her inner collage artist and put the materials to good use. Collage continues to be a self-guided exploration of new patterns, challenges, and storytelling. Her approach to collage involves precise cuts and intentional layering, blurring boundaries to forge abstract and figural stories. She remains dedicated to traditional methods and a devotee to the analog. Nothing is digitally constructed. Since 2020, she has shown nationally and internationally. She's been published in Create, Collage, and Chicago Collage magazines, and recently selected for Saatchi's The Other Art Fair. Residencies have included the Collage Institute in New Orleans and Chateau Orquevaux in Orquevaux, France. Her work has been commissioned for commercial showrooms and private clients. Bridgette, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you as a guest.
Oh, Nicole, thank you for having me here. I'm so thrilled to be here.
So to kick things off, I'd love to hear about how you got started as a collage artist.
Well, it started during the pandemic. I had never done collage before. So it was definitely, it was a way for me to mitigate anxiety. Our society was really kind of turned upside down. It was turned upside down. And I think that there was definitely an element of self-soothing, in creating these fantastic narratives that gave me a stopgap, from all of the media and all of the tension that we were all going through at the time.
Oh, that is amazing, because there was so much happening during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And then using collage as a creative outlet and to self-soothe, as you mentioned, is healing.
Yes,
Definitely healing.
absolutely. And I am a natural gatherer of vintage materials. So I had an abundance of source materials already in various boxes. And so that provided the impetus. Like I just started pawing through, all of these old magazines and reading these stories and seeing these old advertisements. And it was from the ridiculous to the sublime. And there were things where it's like, oh, I really need to turn this on its head. I'm going to mess with this. So that's kind of like how the seed was planted, just by these little minor stories of disruption where it's like, no, all women don't want a pink stove, and in 1955, it's just like, I think women want a lot more than a stove. So you just had this humor that came out of the silliness of what was being presented.
I have to laugh. I'm smiling. When you mentioned the pink stove, I immediately thought of Tupperware and those Tupperware commercials and just all these roles that were unrealistic. And the fact that you're able to use the imagery as a source to create your work is quite fascinating. Can you tell me about your earlier work? You mentioned that it sounds like you went on a scavenger hunt to find the work around your house.
Sure.
What did your initial pieces include?
The initial pieces included a lot of imagery from more contemporary magazines like Arc Digest, Elle Decor. I had just been in a job position where I was interior design adjacent. So that was something that was really, it was in my language, it was in my wheelhouse. And early on, it's like, there was just an abundance of these like shiny images, like really like fascinating and luscious. And our world had just, like the color and the sound had just been muted by this pandemic. And so I was making these like bright and lively, like little vignettes that I would paste into a little notebook. And then I would take a picture of it and then I would post it on Instagram. And of course, it became like this reciprocal thing where, people would, they're like, this is ridiculous. This is so silly. This is adorable. I love it. And it just became like this really wonderful feedback loop that I had with my community online. So that's really, that was like the genesis of it, was just like these just ridiculous, like little scenes that I would paste up.
It sounds like it was, you're using the word ridiculous, but it sounds fun. Like they were
Yes.
fun
Yes.
and lifted the mood when it was a very difficult time.
Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned the feedback loop. So I'm going to ask you about your source of inspiration to keep going. What inspired you to keep going after the pandemic ended?
I think a big part of the inspiration was definitely the speed that my creative technique was evolving. Things were getting bigger, better, more complex. I was getting invitations to show at group shows. A year after I had been making collage, I had a friend reach out to me through social media and said, I think you're ready for your first solo show. And my response was, but I am not an artist. And she was like, yes, you are. We're going to have a show. You're ready. And so I think that like just, that just shoved me way out there. And it became one of these things where it was this loop between myself and then the viewer who would reach out and come to me with a proposition, a commission, a show, a group show, a magazine cover. So it really escalated quickly.
What I also heard when you were speaking is the fact that you need someone to validate that you are a creative person, that you are an artist, that this is your world, even though there may be this fear of stepping into a space that's unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
How has your journey and your approach to creating evolved since you've started?
Oh, I think that I have seen the ways that it can scale itself in terms of creating something that is complex, creating something that is maybe smaller and simple. I think that when I started to grow in my technique, I started to give myself like challenges where it was like, make a collage using paper that has no information on it. And so the creativity became like this morphable thing where it's like I could test it and challenge it by putting different criteria on it. So I think by all of these kind of like push and pull exercises like that I was doing, it helped it turn into just a more massive set of creative tools that I could pick and pull out of my brain, if that makes sense.
Can you tell me more about your creative process and the techniques?
Gosh, I mean, like like chaos. It's just a mixture of chaos, fun, panic. It's a lot. It's a lot with the creative process. I think some of it is driven by like, oh my gosh, will I be able to make anything ever again? Like, can I top what I made before? Sometimes it's like this one-upmanship where it's just like, got to be better than it was the last time. Okay, how am I going to do that? It's a mystery. Like the creative process usually starts out as this pretty mysterious thing where there's a bunch of paper on my work table, and then it's just this identifying of images, color, pattern, and like how things orient themselves. Usually the idea, that's the last thing. The story about the piece, that's the last thing. Like a lot of times when I make something, I don't know what it means for like a week, 2 weeks. I am just in the thick of this creative flow where it's like I'm looking at the information that is on the paper in front of me and what I am using, and I am trying to unravel this mystery of how it wants to organize itself. And I know that sounds a little bit convoluted because there are a lot of people who are like, I am going to create X, Y, and Z. And usually I'm like, I have no idea. Let's throw it up in the air and let's see what happens when it lands on the table. Chaos.
Yes, it ends up being beautiful pieces. As a creative, how has your journey shaped your outlook on life, both personally and professionally?
Oh, well, I have been, for the better part of my life, I have been a fermenting creative person. And now I think like my vintage, it's there. I feel like I have come to this moment now in middle age where it's like, I am a creative. And how it guides me through life is it impacts how I take in information, how I look at things, how I become inspired. Going through the world as a creative person, you are actively seeing all the time. You're actively seeing details, people, birds in the sky. I mean, it's like your attention span, it just kind of gets stretched out. As I walk through as a creative, I'm looking at things. I'm looking for the magic in it, the detail in it. So sometimes it makes me a pain in the butt because I'm just like, I need to stop and take a picture of this. I'm like, look at this doorknob. It's amazing. It can be fun for me, but sometimes it's not so fun for others.
That's funny because Bridget, I can relate just taking it all in. And I think as creatives, that's what we do. We absorb our environment. But I wonder, how do you manage all of that information? It's sensory overload. How do you take the information and then funnel it into a beautiful piece of work? So you mentioned taking photos. Do you write? How do you express that to end up with the final story?
I think sometimes it is, you have to pick and choose. You have to pick and choose the things that, that are impacting you. And I think that because I have always lived in cities, I think when you live a metropolis, you kind of have a natural filter on what comes in and what comes out. So I think that helps. I think that's just like a built-in survival mechanism to living in Chicago for like 30 years. So I think like living in a city, you're tempered like a piece of glass where it's like you're resistant to, kind of like the things that could break you. I mean, not to be melodramatic, but like I think that I have enough of a filter so where I don't feel overwhelmed. And the things that do get through the filter, that is what makes it onto the paper. It could be the old building that I'm walking around in. It could be the gallery where I see a piece of a canvas. And take that idea and kind of flip it on its head and make it grow into something else.
Do you have any advice for someone who wants to begin collage work and they just don't know how to process the information? They don't know where to start.
Oh gosh. I mean, if they can go to a workshop, be with other people. It kind of takes the edge off when you're in a community of people. And if you don't have access to that, then I think it's just a question of finding materials that you like. It could be something as easy as like creating a mood board of things that you find inspiring and then seeking out that source material. Like if you have paper, you can make a collage. That's the beautiful thing about it is it's cheap. You don't have to use scissors. You don't have to use an X-Acto knife. You can use your hands and tear. You can be as like low tech as you want to be, and you can still, create something really intriguing. Just, you just got to get your hands dirty and play. Like, I think that's actually like being open to playing, being open, turning down like the self-criticism of like, I'm not doing this right, because there is no right. There is only you when you're making something. It's not right or wrong. It's just you and play. So I think that if you can get to a workshop, go to a workshop, meet other people, make something. If not, set aside some time to just play with imagery that you find really appealing. So that's my advice.
That's such great advice. Your work remains true to traditional analog methods, even in a time where so much of art is digitally constructed. What motivates you to stay committed to this process?
Oh, it's just so gratifying to make a mess with paper. It's just permission to make a mess that I find so incredibly gratifying. You can be sloppy. I mean, I have stuff all over my table, and whereas with digital collage, the ease of it is not inspiring for me. Like, it just happens so easily where you can manipulate pieces, and I've seen beautiful work before, but it's just like I'm a messy woman, Nicole.
We're going to stick to the traditional method.
Yes.
Paper everywhere. And that's okay. And that's a part of being an artist, being able to create and show up authentically.
Yes. Yes.
And that shows up in your work.
Yeah. I think part of it is because we are just racing towards all things digital in our society that I never want to forget how to use my hands. Like, and I know that sounds really simple, but we outsource a lot of things that we no longer know how to do. And, like my mother knew how to sew. I don't know how to sew. Like I'm still able to fix something with my two hands. And there's like the pride of craftsmanship and artisanship that lives in that. Whereas the ease of digital media, it's so easy and so quick.
It's always. Do you think that there will come a time that you may try to create a digital collage?
I have.
Oh, you have?
I actually,
What experience?
I have been, like I've got my hands dirty in Photoshop, and it's fun. It's fun, but for me, it's like, oh, this is like refined sugar. So like all of a sudden I'm just like throwing everything in there, and it's just like, okay, let's time out. Like, get back to your table. Balance. I need balance.
So there's that, been there, tried that.
Yes.
So you recently attended an artist residency at Chateau Orcovaux in France. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience and how it influenced your work and your approach to collage art?
Oh my gosh. I feel like the time at Orkvo rewired my brain. And I mean that in the best way possible, because you're limited in the amount of things that you can travel with and take to another country. I wanted to keep, um, I didn't want to oversaturate myself with bringing too many things. And I also brought new mediums of adhesive that I had never worked with before. So it really turned into this opportunity for me to widen my language with materials, with use, trying out new techniques. I was able to really have a fruitful time experimenting. And also, just by virtue of having 2 weeks uncluttered time where I got to be in my own studio. I have a day job, so it's like I didn't have to worry about work. Um, it just, I think being at the chateau just, it gave me time. And that in itself was a great crucible for all of this new technique to spill forth from. Uh, yeah, it was, and it also, like I was there with a bunch of other artists. Like it was artist summer camp. And like you do nothing but talk about art and look at other people's art and become inspired by other people who are making art. And there were just so many talented people there that it was just like it rewired my brain.
And that's what a residency, that's why residencies were designed. Think that we do need time as creatives to unclutter, to declutter,
Mhm.
to just move away from the distraction and focus on craft.
Absolutely.
That I heard you mention that you brought new glue. Is that what I heard? You brought
Yes.
new material. And the fact that you get to go to a residency and you get to play.
Yes.
As you mentioned, it's a summer camp. Well, it's an
Yeah.
artist camp, it's a summer camp, but it's a camp where you get to be around like-minded people, and that makes a difference.
Yes.
Definitely
Absolutely.
does. How important has community been in your growth as an artist?
Oh, tremendous. It's such a necessity. And I think that as I've grown as an artist, it's just so important that you have connection with other people who are working. Um, there's that built-in support network, because I think that part of being an artist involves this really solitary existence. And you can unintentionally silo yourself when you're in the middle of, your creative process. And I think that, what Orkvo really taught me was the value of being in a community. And when I left there, it changed how my method of reaching out to people. I think before I was very hesitant because I always thought that I would be bothering someone if I reached out to them. And it's just like, turns out other artists love to talk about their work, love to talk to other artists about their work. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like
Mhm.
like this is the easiest thing in the world. And so now it's like, like I'll DM anyone where it's just like, what's the worst that can happen? They say, no, I'm not interested. And it's like, fine, like, and you just pivot and you find your people that way. And in Chicago, I'm very lucky that there is a wonderful group called the Chicago Collage community. And it is a wonderful group of human beings, and they have gatherings all the time, and we all do shows together. And it's like, it's this little paste up family, of people and artists who all support and gather together. So,
Definitely makes a difference.
yes,
It's important to have community, as you
yes.
mentioned. You had a solo show this past summer. How did it
Yes.
feel to see your work in that setting? And what were some of the biggest highlights or surprises that came out of that experience?
Oh, I looked so good.
Lots more. What does that mean?
Like everything, I work with a wonderful framer in Chicago. He does beautiful work, and he just, he made all of my work just, I mean, it was like the cherry on the sundae. Like it looked like a finished product. And I'm so used to seeing my work unframed on my table, and it was walking into a room of seeing like a series of work that is all framed. And then, it had like a video montage component because we had a monitor in the gallery. So it was a scenario where the gallery that it was at, they had a monitor. They were very eager to have a workshop component or an outreach component. So it was like not only was the gallery like this perfect white box with my art installed wonderfully, and then like a video component. I was like, I can't believe I pulled this off. I can't believe I did this. I was like, I did this.
Congratulations. I can only
Yeah.
imagine how you felt seeing your work.
Yeah. It was like, it's like, they're your babies.
Mm-hmm.
It's your art babies. And it's just like, I'm so proud of my kids right now. Like,
Do your kids have names? Tell us more about this series, the title. Uh, where can we find more information about the pieces that were in the solo show?
The pieces that were all in the solo show, they were primarily a series that I call Factory Girls. And to give you some context around that, I was born in Detroit into a working class family. A lot of my extended family, they worked in the automotive factories. And so this series is all it's all vintage cars taken from advertisements in Life magazine from like the 50s through the 70s. And I've cut them out and I've kind of broken them down, and I've put them through like my own factory line where I've reassembled them into these abstract sculptures, where you can see bits and pieces. Your eye recognizes that as that's a car. It's not like it's part of one. And so it became the series where it was just like I created a new machine, and how cars have always been couched in like a female context. It's like, oh, she's, like people who have cars and they've named their cars after women. Like there's always kind of this application of like femaleness put upon this object. And it's like, and I kind of wanted to do, this reversal of I am a female. I'm going to take this object and I'm going to really recreate it into this, like, it's a new machine, and the title Factory Girl just seemed to fit, and began back in 2023. It continued and evolved in France at Orquevaux, and then it continued on after I came back from France, and it can be seen on my website, and it can also be seen at the other art fair in Chicago.
Everything you mentioned, I tell you, Bridgette, is fascinating. Fascinating. Just the story, the context around giving birth to factory girls, the meaning, deconstruction of the vehicles, the cars, and then using Life, images from Life magazine.
Yeah.
So you were selected for the other art fair in Chicago happening at the end of March. Exciting. Congratulations.
Yes.
What does being part of this event mean to you? And how do you prepare for something of this scale?
Oh, I think the meaning behind being selected for this, I've reached a certain level professionally. Like I am now I'm seeking like the next steps in how I evolve as an artist. And the other art fair is this wonderful environment where gallery owners are there, art world, people seek out new talent, collectors go. It's really a big draw for people who consider themselves engaged in arts and culture. And I really wanted to take that next step where it's like, okay, it's time to level up. Let's take our factory girls and let's submit them and see what happens. And the work was warmly received, and
Beautiful.
it's like, I know it's going to change things. I have a feeling that things are going to change because I've already had people reaching out to me. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah, like there are rumblings happening and the show hasn't even happened yet. So, um, I'm really excited to see what happens next. I don't know what that's going to be, but I know it's something.
And it's something big and you can feel it.
Yeah, it's
Must
just
feel.
that I don't know what you would call it. Like your intuition starts to make some noise.
Yes, yes. That's beautiful, Bridget. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. When you think about your work, how do you want people to feel when they view your work? What feeling do you want them to walk away with?
Ideally, I want them to be able to have an emotional response to it. Have a feeling, or their curiosity sparked. A lot of times when I do compose things and put them together, like, people will always walk closer to see what is happening in the piece. So what I try to do is create a sense of discovery in the environment of the art, because when people see something that they identify, that is familiar, it's like the light bulb goes on, and they, people get this look of like, oh my gosh, is that what is? They have questions. And I think that's when I have ultimately checked the box. Like, it's just like, when I have created a conversation through what I've made, it's like, my work is done here. It's like I'm talking to another human. And I know a lot of times, like, the end game is to sell your piece, but it's like everything starts with communication and conversation. And that's really like, that's what I'm after, is like, let's plug into each other for like some time and talk about, how this makes you feel. What do you see in it? So,
I tell you, this almost in my mind as you were speaking brings us full circle because you started your creative journey during the pandemic and we were in a time of isolation. And then when I think about full circle, you mentioned plugging in, having a sense of community as well with that
yes,
plug in.
yes,
And I think that's a wonderful thing when you're able to connect people and connect and encourage discussion. So I'd like to take a moment to discuss your upcoming series titled Undomesticated. Can you tell us a little bit more about the concept behind the series?
Oh, yes. I think, undomesticated is definitely, it's a conversation about feminism, domestic expectations, this kind of return to patriarchy that we're seeing in our culture,
Mhm.
uh, especially with our current political situation, which I really don't think needs any elaboration. But because I have such like rich source material from all of these mid-century life magazines, there are a lot of moments in, women's personal narratives that I would kind of like to develop. And, once again, I like to invert this idea of expectation that is put upon um, women and people who identify as women. I like to, play around with these concepts. I understand that women are not a monolith, but like our role is evolving, and there is a definite pushback towards that evolution. And I think what I just want to do is kind of like reject and disrupt this idea of going back to this kind of leave it to beaver-esque, nuclear family, and play around with that, make a mess.
Yep. Make a mess. Yes, yes. The theme that consistently comes up is the inverted view of women's roles, especially from a previous era. It sounds as if you're advocating for a new world for women, where their rights are there for all women. Is there a reason this is a particular issue that's close to your heart?
Yes, absolutely. Both my parents had fine-tuned moral compasses. My father was in a union and he advocated for workers' rights. And my mother, she worked for a living. And I'll never forget, she told me a story about the first job she had when she was 15, no, not 15, 18. She worked for Michigan Bell when we had analog phones, and you were not allowed to wear pants. And she wore she wore a split skirt. So technically they were pants. And they sent her home and told her to put on pantyhose and a dress and come back to work. And she told me that story at a very impressionable young age. And so I learned early on the absurdity of being a female in the workplace, in the world, the double standards, the hypocrisy, and it's one of those situations where I'm not a particularly eloquent or compelling speaker. I am never going to be an orator, but I can filter my speaking voice through my hands onto the paper in this art voice. And I think that is where my advocacy lives, is just, we learn from images. The image is an impactful thing. And I think continuing like this history of feminist art, this is a way for me to have a stake in women's advocacy by taking these historical images and making them into new, progressive, funny, absurd, pieces of work.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing the context around your work and women's advocacy. I understand you've been teaching collage workshops to interior design and the architecture community.
Yes.
What has that experience been like?
Oh, it's been fantastic. They are a great crowd of people. They are visually driven. I feel like people who are involved in these workshops from the design community, they just drop right into it. And it is just game on. Like it is really wonderful to watch them create their artwork. They're usually the workshop, it's two exercises. One is a community exercise where there's tables of people set up, and like an entire table will work on a piece. And then the second exercise is self-guided. So it's really, you have kind of like this icebreaker group exercise that they all involve themselves in. They all have a stake in it. And then I tell them to rip it apart. And it is like a giant freak out. And it is like the most gratifying thing ever. And this is where, you get to explain to them, this is what art is. You destroy what you create, and then you put it back, and then I make them put it back together. And then it's just like the collective sigh of relief, but it is just, it's a hilarious experience.
Sounds like it's supposed to
It's
be
slightly
hilarious.
traumatizing for the designer.
And also a rewarding experience.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing. If you had the opportunity to speak to your younger self, what would you say?
Oh, gosh. That's what would I say? I would probably, that's a lot. Don't be too hard on yourself. When you're younger, like you think you're gonna get it right the first time, or you have to, like, it must be right. It must be airtight. It must be perfect. And it's like, things in life rarely are, except the failures that happen, because those are the best teaching moments.
Oh, what great advice. Yeah. Great advice. Sometimes we really are hard on ourselves.
Oh, totally.
What's next for you?
Oh gosh. I've been invited to participate in the Chicago's One of a Kind show, which is at the Merchandise Mart. And it's a really wonderful experience. I was not expecting to be invited to it. I did not submit anything to it. It was just one of those moments where their team reached out and asked, they're like, we want you here. So I'll be doing that in either late 2025 or early 2026. And I need to make work for that. I need to get cracking.
Well, congratulations. I know your pieces are going to be amazing. Where can we find you? Which social media platforms, website?
You can find me on Instagram at Bridgette_Bramlage. And you can find me at my website, which is bridgettebramlage.com.
Wonderful. Bridgette, thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and I hope you will join us again.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining Let's Talk Passion and Purpose. I hope you're leaving inspired and ready to elevate your journey. Remember to subscribe, rate, and share if you enjoyed today's episode. Stay connected, follow your passion, live purposefully, and we'll see you next time.